about you guys, but I am sick and tired of the constant crisis mode that we're in.
We always have problems that we need to address, we need to deal with, but we shouldn't scare the living daylights out of everybody thinking the world is about to end.
It's not always the end of the world, and we're going to talk to you about all the constant issues, not just here in the past year, but the constant over the decades of people saying it's the end of the world. We think that you're really going to enjoy this conversation. Let's get started. What's up, everyone? It is the end of the world as we know it, and you and I...
We survived.
Well, we feel fine. That's what I was going for. Anyways, you ever follow through on the jokes that I put forth for you. It's I got to guide you by the hand. I'm Dustin Bass.
Were those jokes?
And who
was that
the
a
hell
joke?
Are you?
I'm Alan Wakim, but was that a joke?
And that's an unfortunate state of affairs. Yes, it was a joke because it's based on a song that everyone knows, apparently, other than you.
I must have been drifting asleep.
Is that part of the...
REM.
Unbelievable.
REM.
Why would you do... Yeah, I get it. Now, it was so overhanded. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about the end of the world, or how often we are told it is the end of days or the end of things to be. Look, we are in that right now, and we are losing our minds.
Snowpocalypse, what do you call it now?
I don't.
We're in it right now. We've heard it, and I've been hearing
nonstop.
it.
It's never been, I don't think, worse than it is right now.
Debates. Some of the debates that I've been in this week alone, just on what has happened in the last week.
Yeah,
people are like going, "This has never happened before," and I was like, "No, the blackouts has never happened before in a winter freeze." And believe me, I can think back to the earlier days. We never had problems like that, but we've had freezes before. People are freaking out. Oh, one guy who's...
Before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
as
you tend to do,
we are going to talk about
unbelievable.
This. All right,
this is his first time on the show, so he doesn't know that we do a book and movie recommendation at the beginning. So I will begin, since that's what you wanted me to do at the beginning. Look, I know that I referenced this book a couple of weeks ago when we talked about Walter Williams and Thomas Sowell, but to get a quick grasp of the constant hyperbole that is perpetuated by politicians and famous people and
activists,
scientists and activists,
all wrapped into one. Actually.
Oh my gosh, you've got to read this book. It is The Vision of the Anointed by Thomas Sowell, our very good friend who doesn't know either one of us. Self-congratulation as a basis for social policy.
We should try to invite him on this show.
We should.
Yeah.
We should at least try.
Yeah. I mean, we've been failures at a lot of things, so it's not going to hurt us.
It's not going to hurt us. It's just going to be run-of-the-mill, typical response.
Yep.
No response.
But if we got him,
that
would be
we would
cool.
be on top of the world.
Hey,
we got Alex Kershaw.
We got Alex Kershaw.
We got Mary Graybar.
Dr. Wolverton.
We got Dr. Wolverton. We got Dr. Harden. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Dr. Stephen Harden. I forgot. We forgot. I forgot.
I'd have slapped your face.
Anyways,
ladies and gentlemen,
that guy.
You got to read this book. It's not that long of a read. It is chock full of information regarding all of the freaking horse crap that has gone on. Primarily, he references the past 60 years. But you got to
50 of them I'd know of.
You got to read. You got to read it. Anyways, all right. My movie recommendation, interestingly enough, came up in conversation, and actually before our conversation, about 2 weeks ago, came up in conversation from a friend of the show, the same person who gave you that T-shirt of the history.
Oh, yes. Which, by the way, thank you for that.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
So Kim actually brought it up. Soylent Green, ladies and gentlemen. I've not seen Soylent Green. You've not seen Soylent Green. But I've got a question. What is the secret to Soylent Green? Charlton Heston plays in this movie along with Edward G. Robinson. Apparently it was his last film before he died. If you don't remember Edward G. Robinson, well, you don't really know classic movies apparently, or you've never watched Ben-Hur. Or the Ten Commandments. Wait, he wasn't in Ben-Hur. He was in Ten Commandments. Was he in Ben-Hur too?
He was in Ten Commandments. I don't remember him in Ben-Hur.
He was definitely in Ten Commandments as
Yeah.
Korah.
He was, Ten Commandments. He did some.
He was
kicked out of
a shady
Egypt.
guy.
Yeah, very shady.
Yeah, and then he eventually fell into the hole in the ground.
Humphrey
that God created.
Humphrey Bogart also had problems with him in movies. In movies only. I don't think in real life.
Oh, okay. Anyways, there was where they come in. Anyways,
What, the Humphrey Bogart one?
Yeah.
There was like a hurricane
Tropical.
movie. There was a hurricane of some
There's a
sort.
hurricane.
I
Anyways.
went to location in Florida in Key Largo.
Key Largo.
Where they filmed.
That's
the name of
the movie?
it. Yeah, that's it. Key Largo. You know, in Key Largo, if you're in Key Largo, if you ever go to Key Largo, there's a Holiday Inn on mile marker 100, I think. But there's a Holiday Inn, and the actual African Queen is there. I actually wrote
like the boat?
The actual boat, the actual African Queen. Me,
Wow.
Jennifer, and my friend Jeff DiBartolo, something or other. Can never remember his full name. He's got a very long name.
It's a good name though.
Jeff's a good guy, but
Jeff's a good man.
Jeff DiBartolo. But anyway,
How
the three
far
of us,
down this rabbit hole or this?
I'm just saying, if you're in Key Largo, but there, if you want to ride the African Queen, the actual boat. It's at the Holiday Inn in Key Largo. It's on the
100
east.
mile mark.
If you're going north to Miami, it's on the east side.
All right, so that's my movie recommendation. It was made in 1973, and guess what? Guess what the year is that it's referencing? 2022. Real weird. Thanks, Kim, for bringing that one up, and thank you for bringing that one up before we got started. Yeah. Your book and movie recommendation.
All right, I am actually going to dedicate today's show to he is one of my heroes, Rush Limbaugh. I loved Rush Limbaugh. Now, I started listening to him in 90 or 91 when I was here in Houston, and I had some of my jobs meant driving around the city. And I remember I put it on the AM radio station and started listening to this guy. It's like, wow, that guy is saying the things that I always think about, that my viewpoint, which was never, ever, ever portrayed on TV or movies unless they made the guy look like an idiot. Yeah. Which they did quite a lot with a lot of the TV shows, Norman Lear, all those shows. Anyone who's a conservative was something was wrong with him. But this guy was just stating the things that I've always felt. Here's a guy, finally a voice for the ways that I'm thinking. Yeah. And I come to find out that his name was Rush Limbaugh, and apparently his audience just kind of grew and grew and grew.
Yeah.
Now he wrote as far as I remember 2 books. I bought both of them when they first came out. Now the book that I want to recommend is called The Way Things Ought to Be. That was his first book. A lot of people were stating, "Oh, he's a racist. He's a sexist."
Oh yeah, that's still going on, and I want to touch on that after you get through.
Yeah, I mean, if you read his book, you'll see where his mind was, how he felt about things, and he was none of the things that people called him. His belief was to go against the orthodoxy of the liberals. Oh, we need to help the black people because they're helpless. We need to help the women because they're helpless. He's like, no, they can make it on their own. And even Frederick Douglass was even stating, quit treating us like we're children. Yeah. Frederick Douglass was stating that. He's like, okay, if
you're wondering what to do with this, leave us alone.
Leave us alone. We're adults. We can walk on our own 2 feet. And that's what Rush Limbaugh was doing. Yeah. And he was called all kinds of names because he didn't see minorities as being these helpless people who just need government assistance, and then they'll be, no. Yeah. He's like, no, get off their back. So The Way Things Ought to Be, his first book, I'm going to recommend that book. I actually enjoyed that book. It was a very enlightening book. Now, for the movie, I'm going to go with the TV show. Now, in 92 and 93, and I think it went on into 94, Rush had his own TV show. You can find it on YouTube. If you get a chance, watch it. It's pretty funny. He was a real funny guy.
He was a funny guy.
Yeah. But if you go to YouTube, you'll see the Rush Limbaugh show. They would purposely put his TV show on like at 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning. And I think he just got fed up and tired of it and decided not to have the show anymore. But it's very entertaining. You get to see what the man was like. And unfortunately, he passed this week. Great loss to this country. I used to call him. I tried to reach him out
And
to him.
people to that point, people say, "Oh, he's a loss to the conservative movement." Like, no, he's a loss to the country.
Yeah.
Because he was one of the most powerful voices, not even so much like from the conservative movement, although that is true, but from the fact that he would just tell it like it is, or as he saw it, and there was no this, well, you need to apologize for this. Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. Let me go and apologize. He was unapologetic, and I think apology is fine in its place, but we've gotten to the point today where everybody has to apologize for things that aren't even offensive, that are just offensive because somebody says that was offensive.
Yeah, the cancel culture is just running amok right now. But
He was bold.
Back
I think
in,
that was what I was wanting to say.
He started in the late 80s. Now, back in those days, we didn't have the cable TV. I mean, we had cable TV, but not like we have today. You got your news from ABC, NBC, CBS, and there was a CNN started coming out. It became really big during the Gulf War. But back then, I mean, that's where you got all your news and all your information. Radio was local events. It wasn't like a national. Here's a conservative voice that Larry King had his show, and you had Casey Kasem, stuff like that. But it was never about politics. He was a voice. And the thing that amazed me was that, the Washington Post, New York Times, all these big newspapers, and all the TV stations that I mentioned were full of liberal voices. And I know a lot of people don't realize this, but Walter Cronkite was a liberal. He was not a conservative. And he presented the news the way he wanted. But I noticed in the late 70s and early 80s some bias when I went across the Atlantic, went into Asia and Lebanon and places like that, where the news that we were being presented in the United States was nothing like they were stating. So he would, people were throwing out the fairness doctrine. Rush Limbaugh, you need to have, you need to have balance. And he's like, no, I am balanced.
Yeah.
I'm balanced against all these TV stations. I mean, they used to have a TV show called This Week with David Brinkley, and they'd have George Will versus a bunch of liberals. It was always George Will, the leading conservative, and all the liberals. Bill Maher had a TV show called Politically Incorrect. You had one conservative, 3 guests who were all liberal, and Bill Maher, who was a liberal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it was all the time. So, yeah, his loss is a loss to this
I like
country.
going to college.
And he started the careers of your Glenn Becks, your Sean Hannity's, Mark Levin's, all the conservative people.
Powerhouses.
They all, Michael Berry.
It sort of all stems from him.
Yeah.
It's like if there was a conservative family tree, like a modern day family tree, conservative family tree,
he would be
that root would be him.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. So what? So that's your book and movie recommendation.
Yeah, the book is his first book, The Way Things Ought to Be, and the movie would be his TV show. You can go to YouTube and you can find it.
Yeah. So we're so that's our tribute more or less to Rush Limbaugh, a great voice that was lost. Another great voice that was lost was Carmen. Did you hear about that? The Christian singer. Did you ever listen to him?
No, I didn't. I tried to listen to Christian music.
Right, yeah.
I tried to listen to Christian music back in the 80s.
No, look, for all the people who grew up like listening to Christian music because your parents were like, you're not listening to MC Hammer or Vanilla Ice, so you listen to the great Equilibrium, which would be Carmen. He died of cancer. Or no, he died of hospital. He had a surgery and that was something happened. 250,000 people die in this country every year because of mistakes made in the hospital.
I've heard something about that.
Come on. And you're going to talk to me about... Anyways, don't give me this.
I tried to listen. I used to listen to KSBJ very briefly back in the early 80s. Yeah, I tried in the early... Now, there was a group called Petra, and there was a girl named Kathy Tricoli. I don't know if... Kathy Tricoli? Yeah, I thought she was kind of cute. She had this one album, which was good.
Petra was it for
Petra was
Christian rock. Man.
Yeah. And then there was that...
And Stryper,
Well, there was that one... Yeah, I remember Stryper. And then there was this one lady, she became... she sang with that Peter Cetera guy. And then she became kind of mainstream. Now I think she's
Amy Grant?
Amy Grant. She's rejected Christianity or something
I
like
don't
that.
think she rejected Christianity.
I think she did.
I think she just got out of the Christian music
No, I
scene
think she,
to an extent.
Well, maybe we can. Our
Well, who
audience can
knows?
check that
Who
out. Yeah.
knows?
Not
Yeah.
that we want to talk about Amy Grant, but let's
Yeah.
talk about other disasters other than
Other than Amy Grant.
Amy Grant. Yeah.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are living in the crisis mode. We're like in crisis mode, like constant crisis mode. The COVID crisis that took place starting, at least here in this country, really in March of last year. So we're moving
That's
into
a worldwide thing.
I know that, Alan. I'm saying in this country, the crisis really started in March because that's when everything started sort of getting shut down.
All right.
I know it was towards the end of 2019.
I want to go. I'd love to go to Europe, but I can't
globally.
go to Europe because Europe was shut down. Can't go to Australia. Can't go to. Wanted to take my mom to Lebanon. Can't do that because COVID.
Yeah.
COVID.
It shut everything down.
It's shut down the whole world.
And so people were like, "This is the end of the world. This is what happens when you got too many people and all this." It's like, look, this was, from our perspective, sort of a man-made situation that has been blown out of proportion to an extent.
Well, it's not like
just like we're shutting.
we know
you shut the entire globe down.
I mean, we're not making
people
light
are like,
of this.
no, we need to shut the entire globe down. And it's like there was no real rational thought that went with. I mean, there were people on the fringe, but they were only allowed on the fringe to even say, "This is not a good idea." You don't shut down the entire
Right. We handled it incorrectly because SARS was or H1N1 was a coronavirus, but we didn't shut down the country.
No, we didn't shut down crap.
Yeah, and I mean now 60 to 70 million Americans caught.
Yeah, I think it was like
H1N1.
60 to 90 million. Yeah,
I know it was over 60 million,
and it was more deadly than what we've got going on over here. People are like, "Whoa, Dustin, there's like almost 500,000 people who've died in the U.S." Really?
Yeah, we don't.
I mean, if that's really, here's the thing: if you are buying into all of the high level like hyperbole, like every person who's died is strictly from the COVID situation.
Yeah,
it's like
there's a
people
difference
are
between
dying on.
There's a difference
heart
between
attacks,
dying
being shot in the face.
Right. There's a difference between dying of
motorcycle
COVID
accidents
and dying with COVID. Now, if you die with COVID, let's say you're shot or you're in a car accident or you fall off a ladder or you have cancer, okay, then they put you in the COVID deaths. Okay, this person died because of COVID. Okay, and that's what
any
happened.
other time it would have been, well, they died of cancer or they died of a heart attack.
George Floyd.
Or they died of suicide.
George Floyd had COVID.
Yeah.
He's the only person I know of that didn't die of COVID. He died because of police brutality.
Right.
But everybody else, it's yes, we're being hyperbole.
It's death by convenience, more or less.
Yeah. But if you died with COVID, then you were classified as a COVID death.
And so what is followed up with the COVID situation? What has followed up is the mass push for we need a new world order. We've got to shut things down. Maybe we need to rein in our production. Maybe we need to focus more. People are actually, and you've heard politicians, you've heard other people talk about this, they are tying the COVID situation to the climate change crisis. They're trying to tie these two together. It's like, how that's possible, honestly, they don't even worry about how that's possible. They just people would just say, that's the way it is. You need to agree with this. And we're going to give you a freaking ton of historical moments where people have said, sure, this doesn't make any sense. Sure, common sense tells you that what I'm telling you doesn't add up. But I'm telling you this, and I've got all these degrees, and I'm with this group, and I'm with this think tank. So believe what I'm saying.
Well, one of them that I remember was the big thing, and there was a lot of criticism for, was ventilators. And I remember when Andrew Cuomo, who right now, as of this recording, is there's a cover-up investigation going on. I'm not going to say that he covered up, but there is a cover-up investigation going on by him where he threatened some people.
Well, I know he
in New
covered
York.
up a lot of old people in
Right.
nursing homes with sheets over their faces.
Well, yeah, but he was demanding either 20,000 or 40,000 ventilators. And I remember President Trump was like, "Why do you need so many ventilators for?" And I remember getting into arguments with people where they were like, "Trump is killing people. We need those ventilators now. They need ventilators. We need to get And Trump was like, "Why do y'all need so many ventilators?
Yeah.
We sent you a giant ship into New York Harbor, and you're not even using it. We opened up the Javits Center, Jacob Javits Center, and they weren't using it.
They weren't using
They
it.
weren't using it. Here in Houston, they opened up a bunch of kind of like MASH units, just about, and nobody used them, and millions of dollars, and nobody used them. But people were demanding 20 to 40,000 ventilators get to New York right away.
Yeah.
And come to find out, and this is what I've been hearing from a lot of medical people, is that the ventilators was what was killing a lot of these
Right,
people also.
yeah.
So,
And that's not
but
even...
the hysteria.
hysteria.
We need the ventilators now.
People
20 to
love-
40,000.
People love hysteria.
Yeah.
It is a drug. And that's sort of one of those things that was pointed out throughout this year. It's just like people are getting a kick, more or less, a kick out of seeing the numbers just continue to go up of how many people have died, how many people have caught this. Like it was.
CNN took off the ticker.
Oh yeah, once Biden gets it.
yeah.
I mean, like put two and two together, ladies and gentlemen. Just put two and two together. We're not telling you what to think, but just add things up. You got the freeze. You got the freeze going on here in Texas. Never has happened before.
Yeah,
We've never experienced temperatures below 55 before here in Texas.
That's some of the arguments that I've had. I have had arguments with people that have insisted this is climate change, that we've never had a freeze like this. It's like, yes, we have.
Yeah.
I remember, and yes, this is anecdotal, but I lived it. When I went to A&M, Texas A&M, College Station, and I remember January of 1989, and then when I graduated, I remember December of 1989. Now, I was in Houston in December of 1989, and temperatures were, if not surpassing what we just witnessed. I mean, I remember looking outside, I was going to go to a job interview, and there was ice. Ice was falling. Little ice crystals were falling from the sky. It was so cold.
Yeah.
But we had power the whole time. And in January of 9, like 11 months earlier, me and my friends, we were outside going to the mall, and we'd have a car. It was so frozen. I mean, ice was everywhere. We would drive around with a rope on a cardboard. That's how we entertained ourselves.
Yeah.
But we had power. Now, that was funny. We had pizzas delivered, but the pizzas kept arriving late because so many people were ordering pizzas.
Yeah.
We kept getting free pizzas. We had like 8 or 9 free pizzas.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah. But I mean, we've had frozen temperatures. We've had ice. But we just have never had power outages at this level, at this scale.
And this whole climate change thing, like everything is blamed on climate change.
Yeah.
If it's hot outside, climate change. If it's raining, if there's flooding, climate change. If it's cold, climate change. If there's a hurricane, climate change. Earthquake, climate change. As if these things, these natural disasters that have gone on since the beginning of mankind, since the beginning of the earth, I would assume, has never happened before. This is all climate change related. I'm like, when will we stop being absolutely ridiculous with the hyperbole and the hysteria? And we've never had frozen temps. Like,
we've had frozen temperatures
because
before.
of climate change, because of this insanity that's going to happen. We've got to get ahead of all this. So you've got the ERCOT or whatever, and they're like, oh, we got rolling blackouts or rolling brownouts. They had a freaking blackout or brownout towards the end of last year because of a hurricane that was supposed to hit us, and it did not hit us. It was sunshine, it was perfect weather, and my power was still out, along with the power of tens of thousands of other people. And I called my energy company. I was like, why exactly why are we out? I said, it's one of the most beautiful days of the year. The hurricane didn't hit us. And they're like, oh, well, we've been doing these brownouts, these rolling brownouts.
Yeah.
I'm like, why?
See that? But
Why would you do that?
that's a
We don't want to crash.
That's a man-made thing. That's a man-made thing.
Yeah.
Man-made decisions created that. You know, now we're not making light of what happened with this freeze. I mean, I had to go rescue my mom who was sitting in pitch blackness. No heat in her home. She'd been sitting there for hours.
Yeah, we're not saying that it wasn't cold. It was freaking cold.
I mean, yeah, it was bad. I mean,
and yes,
I
there
went,
was snow here like I've never seen before, but I have seen snow before, and I think it was the late '80s freeze. And then there was one in the mid '90s. Late to mid '90s where there was a lot of snow.
We had a period. I remember listening.
Got that on VHS.
Do you? Well, I remember watching the news at the time, and they were talking about how we had 100 consecutive hours of sub-freezing temperatures. Okay, and the temperatures went down into the 20s, into the teens during that time. So, you know, I sat and I had arguments. I'm not going to mention names, but I got
into not the McCarthy era.
Yeah,
so
I know.
You don't have to.
I'm not going to dox anyone, but I mean, they were telling me we've never had a freeze like this before. Yes, we have. And in fact, this was not the coldest that the city had ever been in.
And technically, you can always say that. We've never had weather like this before.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and no one's going to call you on it.
Technically, you're right.
Yeah.
We've never had weather like this before. Yeah. You know, if you take everything
and no one will call you on it either.
Oh, no. But I do want to bring out one of the things going back to the COVID situation. This guy, Neil Ferguson, which should be a freaking household name now. He worked at the Imperial College putting the numbers together of what will happen if we don't take care of this COVID situation. 2.2 million people would die here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. So we need suppressive methods being put into place. And we experienced that for 18 months. And there was no recourse for this guy, despite the fact that he went out later to meet up with his mistress, who was married with, you know, husband and kids and everything. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, and you know what? That's his downfall. Not the fact that because of his model that he helped, that he more or less, he was the head guy on this model creation he put together. Yeah. That's not what's going to be the bad part on his name. The bad part on his name is he went out and broke his own rules to meet up with some chick who was a hussy. Not that you pretty much put the entire economic system in the world. What's funny?
No, I'm thinking about...
I know. What are you thinking of?
I'm thinking about Seinfeld. I'm thinking about The Stranger by Albert Camus. Have you ever read The Stranger?
No.
Yeah, you should read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the Seinfeld one?
Well, the very last episode of Seinfeld was based on Camus, if that's his pronunciation. It's Frenchman. This is based on The Stranger. What? Just read The Stranger.
Wow, that was...
Yeah. But you reminded me when you're like saying his economic forecast is not the worst thing. The fact that he had an affair. Yeah. That's, you know.
Yeah, you finally...
But yeah, that's from that's from The Stranger. Read The Stranger.
Had that
it's not a very
grin on your face the whole time?
Yep. I
can't even focus when you do stuff like that.
Look, I had a flashback of The Stranger. And
yeah, you did.
Actually,
but that's what's stupid. You put the world's economic system back, and he even said, we're going to suffer from this for decades. Mm-hmm. And he was way off, right? And people would be like, no. If we didn't do these measures, like, what are you talking about? If we didn't do these measures, like, we've ruined countless lives. But he will be remembered as the guy who broke his own rules because he had an affair. Here's the thing. This is not the first time Neil Ferguson, Mr. Reliable, has done something like this. I wrote an article for the Epoch Times in May. I was way ahead of the thing. I was way ahead of everybody else. I like to think that I was way ahead of everybody else on this. Just calling things out. So I wrote an article called COVID-19 and the Surrender of Common Sense and Human Decency. You can check it out. But he also suggested in 2005 that the bird flu could kill up to 200 million people. From 2003 to 2015, how many people had died from that illness? 440.
Died from the bird flu?
Yeah.
Wow. I think that's a little off.
It's insane.
You think?
Yeah. He also predicted that somewhere between 50 to 150,000, that's quite a range, could die from the 2002 mad cow disease outbreak.
How many did they? Many?
Not very many.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing.
No.
The only thing I remember about that was Oprah
But
Winfrey.
if you have
Oprah
that
Winfrey killed
50
the meat industry in Texas or did
Yeah.
something. And she was sued.
Yeah, because they're really, really smart people. They're way ahead of the game. So here's another guy, David Nabarro of The Who, not the band, World Health Organization. I know you wanted to make that joke. He warned that between 5 million and 150 million people would die of the bird flu, the 2005 bird flu.
I had a buddy of mine named
He was
Horton.
wrong.
He heard The Who.
Really?
Yeah.
Was his name really Horton?
Horton hears The Who?
Yeah. I get the joke, but do you actually have a friend named Horton?
Who?
There you go.
Come on.
That's stupid.
That's
That's a stupid joke.
It's like saying
From
I
a
know
s-
someone named Ruth. I don't know anyone named Ruth. I really don't.
Okay.
I knew a lady named Ruth when I was a kid. All right.
There you go. 1992.
No,
Mad cow disease.
1974. I knew a lady named Ruth. Ruth Wilt. That was her name. I had a crush on her daughter, Amy.
Is she still with us?
I don't know where she is. This is 1974. That's a long
This
time
is
ago.
like really way off topic. And look at that, moron. Can you stay focused for a second?
Well, maybe if you weren't so dull.
I'm giving information,
All right.
if you don't mind.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
1992, the mad cow disease scare in England led to 4.4 million cows being slaughtered after it was estimated that approximately 180,000 were infected. The CDC predicted that Liberia and Sierra Leone would suffer 550,000 to 1.4 million deaths during the 2014 Ebola outbreak. How many died? Less than 12,000. So this is not something that is brand new, all by itself.
Yeah.
Go ahead with your stupid comment.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
Her name was Ame Wilt. Please continue.
That's good.
I kill myself.
I wish you would. I shouldn't have said that.
I'm gonna cancel you now for that one.
I would appreciate it if
Yeah,
you did.
Go ahead.
All right,
I'm
let's
sure.
talk
I'm
about.
sure this episode is gonna get canceled. It's
Oh,
gonna
more than
cancel
likely.
us, so.
All right, let's talk about the Club of Rome. Do you know anything about the Club of Rome? Don't lie.
I did read a Hal Lindsey book. I think it mentioned.
You think it mentioned.
Yeah. It had David Rockefeller in it, right?
Yes.
There you go.
There you go.
Club of Rome,
Are you reading my notes?
maybe.
I think you are.
But no, I read the book Countdown. This is Countdown, 1980s Countdown to Armageddon, and the late great Planet Earth. I don't
Keep
remember
going.
that one. I'm going back in time. Hal Lindsey, great book. But yeah, that spread a little bit of panic too. Go.
Okay, I thought you were going to keep going through the final countdown. All right, so the Club of Rome was started in 1968. One of its founders... Okay, we'll get to that in a second. 1968, Club of Rome starts out in Rome, Italy. Their focus is we've got to figure out a way to protect humanity from itself because we're more or less out of time because our industrial output, all of this stuff is killing planet Earth. It's killing humans. We're going to run out of resources, all this stuff. Now, Club of Rome,
this kind of, I know we're going to bring this up, but this kind of coincided with the whole energy thing the following decade that we're going to run out of oil.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
please continue. It's all tied in together.
Oh, yes, it is
Go
tied
ahead.
in together. Thanks for tying it up already.
Yeah, anytime.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the show. Hope you enjoyed our podcast. So, 1968, they form. One of its founders, your buddy, David Rockefeller. Now, if you like looking into the real sinister side of American history, then maybe look into the Rockefellers and their connections with people like the Rothschilds, and then tie it into the Bilderbergs and all that jazz. But anyway,
The Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations.
yes.
Now, basically, like Bill Gates is a modern day Rockefeller.
Correct.
And, doing the same thing, in the name of philanthropy, trying to control how we do things.
Trying to control how we do things, using people, especially people in other countries, especially people in third world countries as guinea pigs for his little, scientific testing for vaccines and whatnot. Vaccines. I shouldn't have said that. Now we're definitely going to get canceled. We're going to get
Yeah.
canned.
Yeah, we are.
That's a buzzword, ladies and gentlemen. So here's the thing: is the Club of Rome? They've been wrong on God knows how many things on all their annual reports they put out. Right, still going strong and growing, being listened to, being adhered to. Right. Here's some of the stuff like in 1972, 4 years in, their report said that the world needed to establish zero growth. Zero growth in order to preserve humanity. Why? It says there may be much disagreement with the statement that population and capital growth must stop soon, but virtually no one will argue that material growth on this planet can go on forever. I'm pretty sure material growth has been going on even more so now. We are, 50 years removed from that statement? But why did they think like this? Your buddy Paul Ehrlich, he put together the the Population Bomb book in 1968, the same year the Club of Rome. Maybe there's a correlation there.
Is that
Maybe
the
not.
guy who stuffed his girlfriend in a box?
I think so. I don't know.
Yeah, there was a guy that started this movement. I think he was one of the guys. I have to check it out. He literally stuffed
Don't
his.
check it now.
Well, we might as well.
No.
You talk and I'll look it up.
No.
The guy
Because this is your time to go in.
He stuffed his.
You wanted to talk about Paul Ehrlich.
Okay, well I'm just
And
saying.
you had hours
There-
upon hours to do your research instead of fumbling around doing God knows what
You know, one of these days I'm gonna go
during the
solo.
freeze.
I'm gonna go
during
solo.
the freeze of
gonna
the
go-
century.
I'm gonna break away. We're gonna break up like the Beatles, and I'm gonna go solo. You can
Yep.
be like John Lennon,
no,
and
you
I'll be
banned
Paul
on the
McCartney.
run.
I'll be Paul McCartney.
If I could only find a woman as good as Oko Yono.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
This is what Paul Ehrlich said in his book, a number of things. He said the battle to feed all of humanity is over. In the 1970s and 1980s, hundreds of millions of people will starve to death in spite of any crash programs embarked upon now. And he demanded that, here's the thing, action, take action now. Do you hear that quite often?
Yeah. We must do something.
Yeah, take action.
We need to do, and we need
Action
government.
now.
We need government to do something. By the way, this is going to be kind of a unifying.
And we needed to take action for what? Population control. Anybody hear that from your Uncle Bill? The modern day Rockefeller? Like he's always talked about population control. He's been on.
He's behind a lot of it right now.
He's been on freaking all these major events, being interviewed on cable television. Population control. Population needs to stop growing, or cataclysmic things will happen in the environment.
Cataclysmic
Why? Because
things. Yeah.
it's our fault.
Okay.
He also predicted that there would be an exhaustion of resources.
Now again, this is what tied in. You had the Soylent Green that came out that predicted by 2022 we're going to run out of everything and we're going to be killing each other over food. Now
We're going to be killing old people and turn them into food.
there you go.
That's the Soylent
We don't want to
Green.
ruin what. We don't want to spoil the ending or anything like that. But I know a lot of people have it.
That's not the ending.
Well, okay. Now I remember what happened in the 1970s when there was a TV show called All in the Family where Meathead was kind of voicing the fears of the left onto TV and made it look like it was mainstream because Meathead was the rational person and Archie was the irrational, bigoted whatnot. So back in the day, we had we're gonna run out of food, we're gonna run out of oil, we're gonna run out of all these resources.
What's funny is like Meathead, that was not out of character from his real life.
No, that really was him.
Yeah, that was him.
Although Archie Bunker, Carol O'Connor really was a liberal.
Yeah.
He was not a conservative. He was making fun of
actor, though.
conservatives. But back in those days in the 70s, we were told we were going to run out of oil. And I remember the long lines at a gas station to get gasoline. I mean, there was now in 1973 there was the Yom Kippur War. President Nixon at the time sided with Israel. There was an airlift. We gave them weapons. We gave them supplies, and after the Yom Kippur War was over, the Arabs they decided, hey, you know what, we're going to stick it to the United States. So they cut production, and the price of oil, I believe, quadrupled like immediately, and there was gas shortages. Now today, if you go to a gas station, you're going to find them all like at almost every intersection, and you will see, and there'll be like two or three across the street from each other, and you have like 12, 16 pumps. Well, back in the 70s, you had a gas station with only two pumps. I kid you not. That's how it was back in the day. So not only did the price of oil go up, but you had to literally you had to wait in line to get oil, to get gas. There was shortages, and it got to the point where you could only buy gas based on your license plate. So if your license plate ended with an odd number, you could get gas on Monday. Even number, you get it on Tuesday. This was in the 70s and in the 80s. I kid you not. I remember this.
Yeah.
So we had that. Now, let's talk about climate change. Now, back in the 70s, they were talking about we were going to have another ice age. Now, I ran through and I found all these news articles. I mean, it goes from 1970 all the way until, I'll see if it goes to 79. Yeah, all the way through 1979, where they're talking about we are going to have a new ice age coming in. They were predicting ice age. Now, these
One of my
articles.
professors, a geologist.
Well, I remember my
professor at
brother.
school, he's like, "Yeah, we're
Yeah, we're
gonna."
gonna have an ice age. My brother was telling me, and this is a big story. My brother was telling me, older brother was telling me, we're gonna have a new ice age. They kept predicting we're gonna have a new ice age. We're all gonna die. It's gonna
Be great.
They're talking about a difference of 11 degrees Celsius. 11 degrees Celsius. That's like what? Wow.
Don't ask me. I don't
Probably
read
like
all
22 degrees Fahrenheit. If I can do my math correctly, it's like 9 divided by 5 times 1.8 or plus 1.8 plus 32. I don't know. It's
that.
something.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, it's 1.8 times.
Pi is 3.14.
No. There's a formula. It's like 1.8 times the temperature plus 32 or minus 32, and that's how you can convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit.
And honestly, I don't even know what that means.
No, that's just double the number and then add 32, and that's how you
I
get.
wasn't even listening.
No. If you double the number, somewhat double the number, and then you add 32, that's how you get the Fahrenheit temperature.
Awesome.
So if you're talking about 11 degrees, just double it or something like that. Anyway, all right, so articles that were, all right, I'm just going to give you some of the articles. Washington Post, the LA Times. I'm not going to do like some of these little ones that people have never heard of, because then people will be like, oh, that must be a conservative. But LA Times, Washington Post, you had the St. Petersburg Times, another Washington, you had Newsweek. So these are some of the articles that were coming out that were constantly Saturday Review, Chicago Tribune, that were sitting and talking about that we're going to have another ice age. So there was a scare back in those days, and this goes on. I know on the cover of Newsweek they had the April 28, 1975. They had the cooling world. That was Newsweek magazine.
And now
It's very.
Now it's the warming world.
Time magazine, 1977, January 31st. The Big Freeze. Calgary Herald. So it just goes on. Milwaukee Sentinel. Okay, well that's Christian Science
Pretty
Monitor. Christian Science Monitor back in those 70s.
No,
was a big
Christian Science
newspaper.
Monitor. I was talking about the Milwaukee Sentinel. It's a big newspaper.
Yeah, their 1979 November 14 article. New ice age almost upon us. So that was going on. And then I remember in 1980.
And it happened this week, Alan.
I know. 1980, I remember we had a brutal, brutal summer. I mean, a lot of people died, especially like in the Chicago area. So, okay, so that was just in the 1970s where they're threatening us with a new ice age. And then it moved on. There were other big scares at the time. Nuclear power. Okay, we had an incident at 3 Mile Island, okay? And then Michael Douglas and that traitor, Jane Fonda, they did a movie called The China Syndrome. And it showed the dangers of having nuclear power. Boy, we should have had nuclear power this past week, shouldn't we?
That's the truth.
So yeah, we had there used to be something, we were threatened with nuclear war. Now when Reagan became president, you know what? That's in the 80s. So we'll skip that. I'll get to that later. But we did have the oil shortages, oil rationing. We had the ozone layer. The ozone layer. CFCs.
The ozone later?
Ozone layer.
Oh.
They were telling us that, we're going to run out of ozone.
I thought you were saying the ozone later. Later.
No,
we'll
the
talk about that
ozone
later.
layer. The scare was, but what didn't make sense to me is that the ozone hole, there was a hole in the ozone layer, was in the southern hemisphere where there's less population, and there was a big hole right above Antarctica, which to me didn't make sense, because if what man was doing was
If it was
killing,
man's fault, yeah.
it would be over North America and Europe, but it wasn't. It was over Antarctica, where there's 10 people living there.
Yeah, if you
I
make
don't
the
know.
expedition.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that banning CFCs was a necessarily bad thing, or was it a good thing. I don't know. I'm not a scientist to sit and tell you CFCs.
And you're
were
not
bad.
a climate scientist.
I'm not a
and
climate
if you were
scientist.
a climate scientist, you still technically wouldn't be a scientist.
Right, but I'm just using a little bit of common sense here. It's like, if man-made products was killing off the ozone, why did it happen over Antarctica?
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, just didn't make sense. Maybe someone who's a scientist can explain.
I can't wait.
Okay, so we talked about the long lines at the gas pumps.
But I do want to mention a couple of things that were said by some high up people, Jimmy Carter, Edward Kennedy being among them. But in 1960, speaking of the oil situation, in 1960, a guy by the name of Vance Packard wrote in his book, The Waste Makers, unfortunately not referencing the federal government. He said, in oil, the United States is clearly approaching depletion.
Yes, I remember those. We have 10 years left.
Yeah.
That's what they kept telling us.
Said at today's rate of consumption, not tomorrow's. I hate it when people do that. It's just like, at today's rate, not tomorrow's. Like, it's a 24-hour period. Anyways, the United States has proved reserves of oil sufficient to meet the nation's need for 13 years. Now, after 1973, and to an extent, like you put this together, and you're making statements like this, and Jimmy Carter was one of them. It's like there is a dwindling supply of energy sources. The prices are going to rise in the future, no matter who is president, no matter what party occupies the administration in Washington, no matter what we do. Senator Edward Kennedy said, "We must adopt a system of gasoline rationing without delay in a way that demands a fair sacrifice from all Americans." And so you're having all these powerful people say this. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, we've already said this. We don't want to humiliate ourselves. We don't want to look like fools. So let's make it happen. And come the 70s, you're doing all of this horse crap that is unnecessary.
20% of gas stations ran out of gas.
It's
20%, and this affected trucker. Now imagine you're a trucker.
It affected truckers. It affected businesses.
Yeah,
it is today.
Yeah, Jimmy Carter came on TV telling us to lower our thermostat down. I remember sitting and watching. I thought, hey, we like Jimmy Carter.
And guess what? Our
family voted for my parents. Well, no, my parents didn't. My parents supported Jimmy Carter in '76. So I thought, but then I'm sitting watching, and it's like, this guy's all doom and gloom.
Yeah, and. It's like turn down the thermostat, all this stuff.
Yeah,
Remember, I posted on Facebook, and I was like, what do people mean when they say conserve energy? And it's like, enough. Like,
well, you can't burn a log because then you're polluting the air.
Yeah. No, everything is out of the question. That's what is so
nuclear
irritating.
power, they kept saying, don't use nuclear power because of what happened on 3 Mile Island. And what happened in Chernobyl? That's because those were the Soviets.
What happened in Japan? Oh yeah, the earthquake.
Well, there was an earthquake. There was an earthquake that happened there.
Yeah, that's careful.
They should have prepared for something like that. But in the United States, we had an incident in 3 Mile Island. I thought I only heard. I haven't read on this, but I thought I heard only one person died, but there was no. It wasn't as bad as they made it out to be. I mean, there have been incidences where people were hurt because of some mistakes with, say, chemicals. There was, I'm thinking of this place called Times Beach or something like that, or Love Canal. Love Canal was a big deal. But, yeah, don't look at me like that. There was a place called Love Canal. I kid you not.
I know there is.
But I thought there was a place called Times Beach or something where they built it might have been Canal.
That's funny.
Love Canal.
And everybody got it.
No, but Love Canal. Look up Love Canal.
I will look up Love Canal. When did that when did that film come out?
when your mustache. You should do a movie called Love Canal with your thick mustache.
Maybe I will.
Yeah.
Maybe I will.
All right. So.
But
Okay. But now we're not done here.
What we're saying is, you had businesses going out.
Yeah.
You know, and people suffering and in the words of Edward Kennedy,
and that was
their
man-made.
sacrifice
Man-made.
for all Americans.
Yeah.
What is happening today is the same thing. Well, we've all got to sacrifice. We're all in this together. Like, the hell we are.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not all in this together.
Enough with this, like, we're all in this together. Like, there are plenty of people who still have their jobs. People in, like...
Yeah, government
the
officials.
Medical, the government,
Government
for sure.
officials.
Just like, we're all in this together. Like, enough.
Dr.
We're not all
Fauci.
in this together.
Yeah, Dr. Fauci still has his job.
He still has his freaking job. But the thing is like, the American people, or the people, the population of the world in general, those are the ones that suffer. Not the people who are like, oh, we're billionaires. We got everything that we need. We're millionaires. We got all... No. The ones that suffer through all of this, and the ones who are preached to on the constant by the people in the higher-ups, whether it's in the science community, whether it's in the medical community, whether it's in politics, whether it's celebrity, enough of the celebrities who think they know so much. It's you and I, it's us, that are the ones constantly having to sacrifice for the greater good.
Right.
And it's like, why does it always fall on us? Look, just shut your business down for a couple of weeks. Shut your business down for 3 to 4 months. The government's going to provide for you. Like, really? You think we really want the government to, like, step in? How many businesses have closed?
Right.
And enough with, well, you need to think about, the minority communities, that, blah, blah. Like, really? The minority communities have been hit the worst with businesses being shut down. So enough with the BS. Can you tell that I'm getting a little pissed off just talking about it?
Government can address the problems without overhyping. Give you another example. Acid rain. Acid rain, okay, that's a problem that needs to be addressed, but it was the #1 lead story for days, weeks. Acid rain. I remember watching Different Strokes where the daughter, Dana Plateau, washed her hair with rainwater and her hair turned green. That was an actual episode. I used to have the hots for Dana Plateau, which died a terrible death. Suicide or drugs or something, I don't know. Everybody on that show. Anyway, so, yeah, acid rain was being overhyped by the news. Why? Because it's
segue.
Huh?
I like that segue.
Like
right back.
Right in there. Acid rain, okay, yes, it needs to be addressed, but not a lead story. Okay, so that was
the constant.
All right, rainforests, the rainforests of Brazil. Now, in the 80s, we were told that we have 10 years left before they run out of forest. I remember I called Senator Phil Graham's office in the 80s when I was a student at A&M, and I addressed my concern about the rainforests in Brazil. And the guy was telling me, look, it's being overhyped by the news media. You don't need to worry. Yes, they are cutting down rainforests, but he was saying that that Brazil knows the problem, and whatever they cut, they're also planting in other areas. So, and this is what he was telling me. And even in the United States, from my understanding from the material that I have read, that there are more trees. Yes, companies will go there and they'll clear forests. Now, there are some areas where they will clear a forest so that there won't be, if there's a fire in one part of a state, it won't spread out through the entire state. And that's what's happening in California. California would not cut down trees. They're just like, no, leave it alone. The Indians, the Native Americans were smart enough to clear some of the forests because they knew that if you had a continuous forest, if a fire starts in one part, it's going to spread through the whole area. So even the Native Americans were clearing some areas. But what companies would do is if they cut down a tree, they would plant either 1 or 2 trees in its place. And Brazil was doing that. Now, if you look at Brazil, it's still a majorly green country because it was overhyped by the news media. And even one of the guys that formed Greenpeace was stating that all the news... Well, no, but one of the founders of Greenpeace was stating all this stuff that the media is saying, it's BS. They're giving you false information to... Although we don't sell newspapers, now it's clickbait. It's to sell clickbait. That's
If it bleeds, it leads.
right.
And the thing is people only share based on the headline.
Okay, what else did we have? Asbestos. Asbestos was a big story. Well, what they were doing, there was one of three types of asbestos, I think, was what was killing people. But the problem is that they would go in there and they would clear a building, but in the process of trying to address the asbestos concern, they were releasing asbestos particles into the air when they could have, if they had left it alone or sealed it in some way.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, I'm talking to
Like
construction.
a dome on The Simpsons?
I don't know. No. If you just left it alone and you put like some sort of a barrier, this is what some of the construction people. That's what the construction. It's not me. I'm not the expert, but they were saying that you can address asbestos without having to try to fix it and make the problem even worse, which is what they did with the whole asbestos situation. Killer bees, Africanized bees. Killer bees are going to kill us. They're going to come in from South America.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were making movies.
Like you were afraid of every bee that flew around. Oh, that's an African
killer bee. The Africanized bees are going to kill us.
They even turned the Astros into killer bees.
Oh, yeah, they did. I remember that.
Thank you.
I remember that. Bagwell and Biggio and Beltran and all those guys. I remember the killer bees. Not funny because
not so much Beltran. Like he came later, but
no, Beltran was part of it. Carlos Beltran, he was part of it. Whatever. Anyway, okay.
He was not one of the original.
But they made a movie called The Swarm. Swarm was, Michael Caine. Yes, but there was another movie where they were in New Orleans, and I remember this car covered in killer bees. They went into the Superdome, and they lowered the temperature down, and it showed all the bees just dropping to their deaths. Stupid movie. But it was like a made-for-TV movie. They had like ants.
Yeah. It's like the day after made-for-TV movie.
Oh, yeah.
Blew everybody's mind.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Well, that was one of the things I was going to talk about. Nuclear war.
Yeah, nuclear war.
They made the movie the day after.
And that Reagan was going to get everybody killed.
Right. And that was
sort of like
that was the story.
With Trump. Everybody, Trump's going to get everybody killed.
Well, they had a thing called the midnight clock. Like we're like 2 minutes till midnight, 1 minute till midnight, 3 minutes till midnight. And I remember under Reagan, it was, I think it went from 3 minutes to 2 minutes or 4 minutes to 3 minutes. I don't know. But I remember the big story was that we're now 1 to 2 minutes until midnight. Yes, that was the thing. But I mean, look what Reagan did. Okay, Reagan addressed the fact that the Soviet Union was an evil empire. They needed to be called out. Jimmy Carter did SALT II. I think Nixon did SALT 1. Both of them were Leonid Brezhnev was the Soviet premier. SALT 1. Now, SALT 2 was such a bad deal that was never ratified by the Senate. So, but Jimmy Carter was just like, here you go, you're just giving our advantage away to the Soviet Union, which was still spreading. In the 70s, communists, there were nations that still fell under communism. The three Indochina countries, Laos, Cambodia, South Vietnam, they fell in the 70s. Portuguese, East Africa, and West Africa, known as Angola and Mozambique, they fell to communism. So communism was spreading. Afghanistan, the Soviet invasion in 79. So Soviet Union was still expanding, yet here we are giving away our
Which is why
advantage.
I still think Jimmy Carter is probably one of the top presidents of all time.
I think so.
Absolutely.
So here's Reagan. Reagan's calling them out, and what happened in '86? I think it was Gorbachev and Reagan signed 86 or 87. Gorbachev signed the elimination of the medium-range nuclear missiles on the continent of Europe. It was a big deal. And it's because Reagan was like, look, we are going to address the whole nuclear war thing. But there were talks here in America. We must do something. We must have unilateral nuclear disarmament.
Yeah.
Was here in the United States. That's what the Democrats were
if we
stating.
start here, then they will follow our lead.
Yeah, they'll.
It's always worked out.
Well, it's
working for the Chinese too.
Well, it's like
if we do it, then the Chinese will follow.
You had like Ted Kennedy and Tom Harkin, I think, the senator of Iowa, and John Kerry. They all went to Nicaragua to go meet with.
Tom Harkin or Alan Arkin?
No, Tom Harkin, I think was his name. He was the Iowa senator, Democrats. They went to go meet with Daniel Ortega, who led the Sandinistas. We can't. Sandinistas were communists. They were Marxists. They were our enemies. Sorry, but they were. They were spreading communism to El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica. Well, maybe not Costa Rica, but they were.
Take it easy.
Well, there was a guy in Costa Rica. I do remember that. Colonel Zero. I don't know why I remember that name. Colonel Zero, who was stationed in Costa Rica fighting the Nicaraguas because he had the Contras coming out of Honduras. But yeah, El Salvador, you had you had these four nuns that were murdered under Jimmy Carter. But yeah, those were the Marxists, those were the communists. So anyway, but that was the 80s. And then
So we got AIDS.
then we have AIDS. Now we're going into the 90s. AIDS
Well,
gonna
no,
kill
the
us all.
80s. The 80s was when the AIDS really started.
Yeah,
out.
but AIDS was considered more of homosexuals and people who were doing intravenous drugs. But in the 90s was when it became, oh, it's going to kill everybody. It's going to kill the heterosexual community. Now, Magic Johnson, I remember when Magic Johnson admitted that he had AIDS or HIV, or he was HIV positive. Everybody freaked. We were all thinking,
I
oh my
remember that.
God.
I remember that, man.
I mean, I remember I was working at a restaurant, Chili's in Humble, and all the waiters and waitresses were sitting, and we were all scared. We were like, oh my God, we're all going to have it. Now, there was a guy by the name of Michael Fumento wrote a book called The Myth of Heterosexual AIDS. Now, he wasn't stating that AIDS is a joke. What he was stating is that, there are a lot of people who are being hurt with the policy of stating that everybody's going to get AIDS. Well, he was providing proof and evidence that it's really just hitting the gay community and the intravenous community and those who mate with them. So if you're a girl who has unprotected sex with a bisexual man, then yeah, you're in danger of getting AIDS. But if you have a heterosexual couple, the likelihood of getting AIDS was just really, really low. And he provided evidence for it. Now, if you look at the results, okay, now that book came out, I think, in 90, 91, 92. If you look at the evidence, I mean, we have not had a widespread, pandemic of AIDS within the hetero community. It's been mostly...
And it was supposed to be like, rampant.
I mean, yeah, and a lot
And the
lot
thing is
of
like
good
for the
people
longest
died from it.
time, the Health and Human Services was saying that, with blood transfusions, there was there was almost no risk of getting AIDS through a blood transfusion. And then all of a sudden people were like getting AIDS through blood transfusions. And, and this was in the 80s.
The tennis star, Arthur Ashe. Arthur Ashe? Yeah. Now, I think he got it from a blood transfusion, but there were no restrictions in place at the time, I believe.
And they were saying, that, and this comes from the book, Thomas Sowell's book as well. He mentions about how nurses were more or less condemned because they were taking extra precautions dealing with certain patients who had AIDS. Or were of a certain type. So they were using gloves and protective gear. They were condemned for doing this because the homosexual community was, the I guess I don't even know if it was technically LGBT, right?
I don't
but
think that was
it was just the homosexual activists who were saying, more or less, this is a protected class and you're offending them, so don't do things that offend them. And yet, at the same time, while you're not doing things to offend them because you're not protecting yourself, you're putting them in a sort of like you're putting them in a position that they feel awkward or
they didn't
left out. They didn't
want to be stigmatized.
Right.
They were afraid of being stigmatized.
Which meant, at the same time, don't protect yourself with common sense.
Yeah.
And so nurses started getting, contracting AIDS by dealing with, certain patients. And then there was the one with, I think everybody or a lot of people remember the one where, somebody got AIDS from a dentist. That was a big story on that. And that sort of blew everything up. And then, but these people, the Health and Human Services and the government, they still doubled down. They never apologized. They were never held, accountable for these things. And that's what's so irritating. It's just like, if you don't know, then don't act like you do know. If we haven't experienced that in the past year, hydroxychloroquine, anyone?
Oh man, yeah.
I mean, freaking A.
It's like, what's his name?
Deadly. Death.
Yeah, what's his name?
You might as well, inject chlorine into your system. Like, what kind of an idiot, is going to do that? But it's like hydroxychloroquine is very dangerous, very dangerous.
Well, I was watching
select doctors
I
talking.
Well, I was watching a press conference that President Trump was having, and he stated that he uses the hydroxychloroquine, and I think it was Neil Cavuto cut in during that press conference and said, "Folks, don't take
Hydroxychloroquine.
what he said. Don't use it. I don't remember if he said it was bad for you or hasn't been proven, but he was I've never seen cutting away from a press conference.
Neil Cavuto is an a-hole.
Well, I've never seen where you had a press conference cutting into the reporter stating, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't listen to what he's saying." And all Trump was saying is that it's what I use.
And here's the thing, it makes you wonder exactly how all of this is interconnected. This is like decades. Thomas Sowell even goes all the way back to, the 18th century, where there was a book called Inquiry Concerning Political Justice by a guy by the name of William Godwin, who was talking about we need to remake mankind. We need to remake people to more or less be subservient to the governments of the world. And this, all of this is intertwined. It is all about control. Are there dangers out there? AIDS is obviously very dangerous.
It's a real threat.
COVID can be very dangerous, especially to people like your mother's age. Right? Can be. But to just blow things out of proportion, to strike fear into everyone, and to have the media take this information and perpetuate it, and then have talking heads like the modern day versions of a Senator Kennedy or a Jimmy Carter to just perpetuate this information and say, this is so dangerous, we're all going to die, we're going to run out of oil and resources, and there are too many people on planet Earth. Like, really?
There was
too many people on planet Earth. They're still riding that wave.
Well, I want to mention, and talking about the panic. Now, in my company, I'm the guy who modifies, creates, deletes network accounts, and I remember in the panic of March and April, I had to terminate thousands of people because of COVID. That was that guy. Granted, I had a job, thank God. I'm glad I still had my job, but I remember just having to eliminate so many people's jobs. I want to move on to something real quick because,
we're drawing to an end.
Well, we have just a few more things we want to talk about. Ted Danson. Now, I don't want to badmouth Ted Danson. I love Ted Danson. Cheers. I met him in Beverly Hills. Nicest guy. Ted Danson, I love you. If you happen to be watching, which I don't think Ted Danson will, but if he is, hey, I love Ted Danson. But Ted Danson did have a campaign back in the early 90s about beaches, and he was he had a good complaint. He went to a beach with his family, and the beaches were dirty. But the thing that he was stating was, and he started a campaign to clean the beaches. Great. But he would say, we have 10 years left before it's irreversible. Okay, well, But see, we heard that quite a bit. Now, in the 70s, by the way, I did find it. Kenneth Field, the world is cooling and global temperatures could drop by up to 11 degrees Celsius. That would freeze the North Atlantic for 4 months of the year within 20 years. That was in 1970. Kenneth Field. I don't even know who that guy is. But global warming came in the 90s. Okay, and that was now the new big scare.
Big scare. Yeah.
Now, and I've had arguments stating, the ice caps.
Yeah.
We've never had that before. There are stories about the Northwest Passage going, if you go
Isn't it interesting? It's like global cooling, wrong, out of resources, wrong, too much population, wrong, global warming, wrong. Okay, what can we do that won't be wrong? Climate change. Because it's such an obscure, obvious thing. Climate change. Yeah.
Well, there was something saying that the ice caps are melting. I actually got into an argument with a liberal friend of mine who stated that the reason why we're finding all these resources and Russia's claiming all this land area is because we've never had the polar ice caps melt as much as we've had before. This is the first time. Not true. Now
you can only go so far back in time to know that.
1845.
But wasn't there like a little bridge in between Alaska
Yeah,
and Russia?
Alaska and Siberia, there was a bridge.
A natural ice bridge that
Right.
is no longer
Well,
around. It hasn't
no.
been around for a very long time.
Right, but it happened, and it happened 10,000 years before we had the SUV.
Yeah.
But in 1845, they're talking about Sir John Franklin's expedition.
That was good.
You like that?
Yeah, that was terrible though.
Yeah. All right, we'll do the elbow bumps.
No, I wasn't going for that.
I'm trying. You know, listen. COVID.
We have to be
COVID,
examples. We've
COVID,
got to
we
be
need
examples.
COVID. We need to be 6 feet apart. We should be wearing masks. I don't know why we're not.
That is
But
true.
so let's just do the elbow. There we go. Hey, so we don't want
I
to be
feel
canceled, do you?
I feel better about this.
Okay, Sir John Franklin's expedition to find the Northwest Passage made it as far as Baffin Island. I don't know where that is. But these are examples of the ice caps being melted during the summertime. A guy named Amundsen sailed an ice-free Northwest Passage. This is back in 1909 to 1910. 1922, the Arctic is warming and fishermen are catching species that have never been seen before. So, yes. So, you know, in the 1990s, global warming came into the picture, and we are hearing all sorts of scary stories about the temperature dropping like several degrees Celsius, which again is like double the number. That's where you get Fahrenheit. Now, I do remember, I think it was around the year 2000 where the temperature got above 110 in Houston for several consecutive days. You like that?
Look
at that.
Yeah.
All right.
Look at that.
I'll just make it quick.
I wish you would. All right, so
Global warming.
remember an inconvenient truth. Your buddy Al Gore, who you voted for in the 2000 election.
He was actually a pretty good guy in the 80s. Not bad.
Not bad.
He was even supported by the NRA.
Good man.
The NRA and Al Gore were friends.
And then he got married.
Well, no, then he went national. When he was the Tennessee senator, he was a good guy.
It's sort of like Lyndon Johnson.
I guess. I never was a
I think he was like conservative for a long time. Then all of a sudden he went national.
Well, Kristen Gillibrand, the New York senator, she was conservative, supported by the NRA. And then she after she became a New York senator, now she is as bad as Schumer.
An inconvenient truth won an Oscar, freaking Oscar winner, making all of these wild predictions, end of the world type of stuff. How many of those things have come true?
He said we had 10 years. Yeah. You know, Rush Limbaugh had a countdown of the 10 years.
Yeah, Armageddon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That things would be irreversible. Now, there's a guy, I don't know if he's with the National Oceanic something or other.
NOAA.
Something like that.
NOAA.
His name is Bastardi, Joe Bastardi.
Okay.
He talks about how, the climate change goes up and down every 30 years. What we see today happened 30 years ago. Now, remember, 1989, 1990, that was 30 years ago.
There you go.
Remember I was telling you about the freezes, the hard freezes?
I forget?
Yeah, I remember it. I was graduating.
So Gore said 10 years. AOC a couple of years ago said 12
Bastardi,
years.
who is a actual climatologist, weatherman, scientist, says this takes place every 30 years. Every 30 years. Yeah,
it's called climate change.
Yeah. So
anyways.
Yeah.
The hyperbole continues.
Yeah.
10 years. AOC's 12 years. John Kerry just put out 9 years.
The guy who flies around in private jets all the time? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, no good bastard.
Yeah. I do want to mention the Y2K thing real quick.
Go.
Okay.
Yeah, because we got all
those
day.
of us in 1999.
Because last week's episode of 2 hours wasn't long enough.
I know. Okay. Well, I remember in the late 90s, I was working in IT back then. We had the Y2K project. We had, all HAL Y2K, all this stuff. Because in the year when January 1st, 2000 comes around, everything's going to shut down. I was on call. Not that I normally was, but they put me on call.
I remember because we had people were in school. They were we're making all these care packages and everything. Yeah,
we thought the whole world was going to come to an end. Armageddon in 2000. Right. Now we have got the Y2038, the year 2038, sometime in January at 3:14 a.m. 3:14 a.m. on January 19th, January 28th. I don't know. Somewhere in that. Before February the 1st. the world's going to come to an end. Why 2038, 2038?
We'll see you then.
Yeah, 2038.
Yeah.
So I'll be in my older age back in those days.
Yeah. So what is it that these people do? If you are not going to believe them, who are they going to put in front of you? They're going to put the kids in front of you.
Well,
Anybody remember Greta Thunberg?
How dare you talk about her? That's a child.
That is true, and I apologize. Isn't that interesting? It's a child.
Yeah.
She's a climate activist. Who gives a crap? She's a climate activist. She needs to be a high school activist. She needs to be
in high school.
Yeah, she needs to be an activist for going to school.
Yeah.
And maybe learning a few things. But you've got a kid getting in front of the UN, which I'm not a fan of the UN, but you've got a kid getting in front of all of these world leaders and lecturing them.
Yeah.
It was absolutely despicable. And who jumped on board? The media.
Yeah.
The media jumped on board and
you can't
she's so
criticize
smart. She's really
her.
great at what she's doing.
Yeah, you can't criticize her because that's a child.
Yeah.
You can't talk that way about a child. Her parents know
Is the insult enough that she's a
Right.
child?
That's-
Can we
yeah.
just stick to that?
Well, the parents are like throwing her into the game. And if
Yeah.
you throw her into the game, then she's going to have to be criticized.
Right.
You can't just jump into the arena and not be attacked.
And what is one of the major groups that is targeted with the Club of Rome and like freaking activists? The youth. The youth are targeted as these are the ones that we need to get. They don't know crap. And if we just fill their heads with things that they're not going to know how to research and figure out on their own, they'll walk around with signs. We'll put money forth and push them through and have them talk on TV, go in front of the UN.
and we're scaring these kids.
Yes,
They're scaring.
They are freaking
listen,
out.
If Greta Thunberg is telling the truth on how she feels, then she is unjustly being frightened.
Yeah.
To speak
And her parents
out.
should be arrested and
Right.
everybody around.
Now, if she's acting, then she should be criminally charged for, for doing what she's doing by spreading fear,
creating chaos.
and if I go on a Facebook and criticize some of these policies, they, what's Mark Zuckerberg? Is that his name now? Mark Zuckerberg?
Yeah, Mark
Zuckerberg is going to sit there and he's going to slap a warning, or he's going to delete my post, threaten me with, being restricted, which he has already. I've already been
He's done that
restricted
to friends
once.
of mine on stupid stuff.
Yeah. So, and now they are censoring you from speaking out, and I'll hear these people say, "Oh,
Against an
it's a
accepted
private
narrative."
It's a private company.
Yeah,
they can
it's
do
all
whatever they
horse
want.
crap.
Well, unless you bake a cake.
Right.
If you bake cakes or you're a photographer, well,
Then
then
your
you
private
have
business
to
is-
you have to follow what the rules of the cancel
Right.
culture. But if you speak out, if you do stuff towards the conservatives, like cut them off,
Yeah.
well, hey, you can do whatever you want. It's your business.
Exactly.
Unless you own a restaurant, then you can't open whenever you want to.
Right.
You have to go by what Bill de
about-
Blasio says, or Governor Newsom, whatever his name is.
Good people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good people.
So.
The World Economic Forum, they've come out, speaking of Council on Foreign Relations, like this is on that level. These people recently issued the Great Reset. Now, 6 months prior, or however many months prior, maybe even a week before, maybe 24 hours before the World Economic Forum officially put out the Great Reset, nobody, at least on one side of the aisle, was going to believe that there was such thing as called the Great Reset.
I heard about it. I mean, even there was this nun that was talking about it from Rome that was warning about the Great Reset.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah,
like
there
going,
were priests and different
Yeah.
things like that. They were
Yeah.
like, hey, because to an extent, the Vatican does have parts to do with it.
Yeah.
Which is why you've got Pope Francis talking a lot of socialism talk. Like his recent, I forgot what they call it, but it's his sort of like his things that he wants to implement. Like it's all socialism. So there is a tie-in. Club of Rome. Where is it? Rome, Italy. And where's the Vatican? Freaking Rome. So
I thought it was a
it's
conspiracy theory when I heard about the Great Reset.
It sounds that way, right? But when you add all of this crap together and you put it all in, it's just like you've got the elite of the elites, like the Rockefellers that are behind all of this. You've got the Club of Rome, which is heavily invested by the European Investment Bank. They're getting hundreds of billions of euros. It's ridiculous how much money they're getting to push their stuff. Even doesn't matter that they've been wrong on God knows how much. Doesn't matter. It is a narrative that's being pushed. This is not new, and that's what we're trying to put out there. This is not a new phenomenon. This is something that is constantly pushed. So the World Economic Forum, one of their things that they put out, and I think they took it down, but it may still be up, but you can just type in this phrase that they put out there. There's a video that they put out. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Mm-hmm. Like, how freaking messed up is that?
You know, whenever who's that guy that said, never let a crisis go to waste?
And that was like Winston Churchill. It was also Obama's
Zelensky.
guy.
Saul Zelensky said it, and Rahm Emanuel said it. Okay. Now, in the 1929, when we had the Wall Street crash, the stock market crash, just about, I don't want to say every economy, all the governments pushed for a centrally planned economic system. And they moved away from the free market and went into, and a lot of countries went socialist. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but Nazism was socialism. Okay. Yes, I know the name National Socialist, but they did have centrally planned economies. Yeah. And one of the reasons why they had a zero unemployment rate was because they moved away from luxury products to armaments. They were going to go to war, and Germany knew this. Germany had a 4-year plan. You can look it up. Germany, and I think who was that fat guy? The Rex Marshal Goring. I think Goring was the one who ran it. But yeah, everything was turning socialist. Italy had a socialistic system. Mussolini was a socialist during World War I. Mm-hmm. Now, I know he had fascism, but the fascism embraced a socialistic style economy, a centrally planned economy. Yeah. Trains run on time. A lot of the European nations...
Socialism is the government owns the means of production.
It's centrally planned.
That's called fascism as well, because guess what? The government owns everything, including you. Yeah. It's socialism. So get over it.
France was moving towards a centrally planned economy. Spain... when you had the 1931 Republic, and then you had the government was changing hands, but in 1936 the Republic strengthened its centrally planned economy, which led to the civil war that took place in Spain. England was also moving towards a Keynesian-style centrally planned economy, and this is where Friedrich Hayek came in. He came in and he wrote two famous books, and we talked about Friedrich Hayek. And he was against what Keynes was suggesting. Friedrich Hayek was stating we need to move more towards a supply side version of an economy rather than the demand side.
Yeah, so if you never read The Road to Serfdom, you need to read that.
Yeah, that one. Constitutional Crisis, I think, was the other one, I think. Yeah. All right. But, in the United States, we had the New Deal. We had...
so it all ties in that the government wants to, and it's this, a push for a new world order. And as much as that may sound like a conspiracy to you, it's like, it's not. Just like the Great Reset sounded like a conspiracy, it's not. Like the World Economic Forum, which has all these countries involved, all these, global leaders involved, the UN. Hello, United Nations.
Well, 1992, you had the Rio Summit.
And you have, during the COVID-19 situation, all of these articles and media was saying, all right, is this the point in time where we put forth a new world order? You've got Henry Kissinger. Speaking of Henry Kissinger, he said this: there are two ways of constructing an international economic order. By will or by renunciation, which would be they force it on us, which is what's happening, or we renounce our independence, our country's independence. Plenty of people are doing that. He said, or by conquest or by legitimacy. Well, it would have to be by will or by conquest, because if we haven't proven our point yet that all of these claims are illegitimate, are there dangers out there? Are there risks? Yes, absolutely. Should you watch out for pollution? Should you watch out for AIDS and sexual activity? Absolutely. Should you watch out for the violent? Yes. But to just create these claims and create the hysteria behind them, which is what politicians and the media love to do, it's...
Have you heard of Have you heard of David Ismay? He was Massachusetts, like an undersecretary of climate change. When you get a chance, to our audience, listen to what he was forced to resign. He was in a kind of a private conversation which people caught wind of. There's a video of him stating that we need to break the will of people in order to get the green policies. I mean, he was stating that on video. He was forced to. He was forced to. His name is David Ismay, Ismay or Ismay. Yeah. He was the Undersecretary of Climate Change in Massachusetts. Just this week, I believe, was forced to resign.
If you are a big New World Order, everything needs to be centralized on a global scale, then people like that, those are good people.
Yeah.
All right? Those are fantastic people. Those are the creme de la creme. These are righteous individuals. If you believe in personal liberty, self-governance, and nationalism from it's America, it's Germany, we're all like, we have our own cultures, we are our own people, and we want to get along with everybody, but, it's still, we have our sovereignty. If you're like that, then these people are absolutely diabolical to an extent.
Read about the Rio Summit.
You're wanting to break people's will?
Yeah, the Rio Summit, 1992. It was about global warming, and they were stating that as individual countries, we cannot control them. But if we had some sort of like a binding authority over all the world, and this was in the 1992, that was what, 29 years ago? 1992 Climate Summit, that they were suggesting that we have some sort of a binding government that forced other governments, other countries, to abide by certain restrictions and rules that a world forum or a world government. This is not.
And this is why
but
Alan and I are not big fans of presidents like Wilson and FDR, who really took major, massive steps. I don't see any coincidence involved with world wars.
Yeah.
But they really took major steps to centralize the power in a few hands in the country, and then also globally.
Yeah.
League of Nations, United Nations.
Yeah. The reason why that the League of Nations treaty was not ratified in the United States was because Woodrow Wilson was willing to give up some of our sovereignty so that all the nations would abide by the League of Nations. What the League of Nations stated, then we all have to abide by it.
Yeah.
And they were trying to do the same thing with the United Nations. So, I mean, it's like we're
Turn
not...
of the 20th century, you had the startup of the International Court of Justice, and so you've got, sort of a global
Is that 20th or 21st?
No, 20th.
20th century?
Because William Howard Taft was, involved.
That was went back then. Okay. So, well, I know a lot of stuff went on, let's say, Jekyll Island here in the United States. We had the Federal Reserve Board. Yeah.
So there's so much. We know that we've given you a ton of information. We think that we've done a pretty good job of doing that. We hope that you've enjoyed this conversation on your most wonderful and fun podcast. We know it's true. As we always do, we like to end on a scripture. This scripture comes from St. Peter. Do you call him St. Peter? Yeah. 2 Peter 3:10. It says, "But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, and then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it will be exposed." Well, until that day, let's not lose our heads, shall we? Let's relax. Let's not make it to where every day is the day of the Lord.
I mean, address the problems. They are problems, but don't make them such a big deal that you just shut down the way you live your life.
Yeah, put the clock away.
Yeah.
So, all right, where can people find us, Alan?
They can find us we're still on Facebook.
I want to go ahead and stop you here.
Yeah.
Don't start naming all the other ones that we haven't really messed with. It's such a waste. It's a waste of your breath. It's a waste of my hearing.
Well, we do actually, but we have posted some stuff on what's that one that came
Wow.
back? That one
See?
that came
See
back.
what I'm talking about?
Well, no. That what's the one that Parlor? Parlor's
back?
back. Parlor's back. Yeah.
I haven't
So,
seen that.
but I did post some stuff on Parlor, but we're mostly right now, as of right now, we're still mostly on Facebook. I'm sorry, Facebook.
Of course.
Facebook. We're still on Facebook. We're on Instagram. You have your Thursday night live chats. We're on YouTube. Please go to YouTube and subscribe.
That's where they're watching.
We're gonna do
You're
just
on
about
YouTube.
Yeah, you're
So,
on YouTube right now. But subscribe. You'll see it.
Click the subscribe button.
You'll see it on the. Click the subscribe button.
And click the bell.
There you go. And we do have our very own website, www.thesonsofhistory.com. And we are going to be a little bit more on some of the others. But yeah, Parlor came back. I did post one thing or two on MeWe, Parlor, but we're going to be on all the others, Gab and GoatHub. What the hell?
Goat Hub.
What is it?
Goat Hub.
No.
So join us on Goat
what
Hub.
is-
You're
no,
going to
no,
love
no,
it.
no.
It's the greatest of all time. It's a hub of all the greatest of all time. Cloud Hub.
What?
Cloud
Hub.
Anyways.
Sorry.
all right.
I will never
See,
forget
that's why I was saying. Don't even mention it.
All
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
right.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed this episode. We will talk to you later.
Cloud Hub.
He's
Cloud
going to be
Hub.
on Goat Hub for the rest of the day.
Well, hey, we're the greatest of all time.
That's right. All right. See you later.